Let's do some more problems where we solve for x, and this time we are going to use cosine. So before you watch this video, make sure you watch the previous video, which was using sine, because I explained some things in that video that I will skip over in this one. So just watch that video first. Alright, so let's remind ourselves that cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Okay, so if we look right here, we have angle 34. So we know that the cosine of 34 degrees equals adjacent, which in this case is x, over 8.7. Now I wrote 8.7 meters. Sometimes you might have a unit, sometimes you might not. I'm just trying to mix it up a little bit. All right, so now if we want to solve for x, we just multiply both sides by 8.7. And I kind of didn't leave a ton of room over here. 8.7. Just imagine that we're multiplying that. So then that goes away, and we're left with 8.7 times the cosine, 34 degrees, equals x. And then when you multiply that out, 8.7 in your calculator times cosine of 34 degrees, you end up with, since I want you to round to the nearest tenth, you end up with 7.2 equals x, and then like I said, always write x on the left. So x equals 7.2, and then let me just put the point there, 7.2, and then don't forget your units, meters. Whoa. In my class, if the students forget the units, if I gave units, it's -1. So just make sure you always remember those units. And that's important for life too. If you're doing something, you need to tell somebody what your units are, because if your units are inches and they think it's miles, I mean, that's an extreme case, obviously. But just always put your units. Okay, if they're given. Okay, so now for this one, again, we're going to use cosine. And this is because I told you we're using cosine for all these problems. So we have this angle is 18 degrees, the hypotenuse is x, and the adjacent side is 5 root 17. So the cosine of 18 degrees equals adjacent, which is this side right here, 5 root 17, over hypotenuse, which is x. So then these two can just flip positions, so you end up with x equals 5 root 17 over the cosine of 18 degrees. Okay, and then this is just a calculator problem, so you just do in your calculator 5 root 17 divided by the cosine of 18 degrees, and then remember that you have to be in degrees in your calculator, not radians. And you end up with x equaling 21.7. Perfect, and there were no units on this. That's an awful 7. Let me redo that. 21.7. All right. Nice. Okay. And this last one here, we're solving for the measure of the angle. Okay, so we have the hypotenuse, it's 22.1. We have the adjacent side, it's 2 root 5. So it's the cosine of x is going to equal adjacent over hypotenuse. So 2 root 5 over 22.1. Okay, so then to solve for the angle, you take the inverse cosine of both sides. So then when you take the inverse cosine of this side, you're left with x, and the inverse cosine of the other side is just inverse cosine of 2 root 5 over 22.1. Okay, now this is just a button in your calculator, okay? So you just type in the inverse cosine of and then write the ratio, 2 root 5 over 22.1, and you end up with x equaling 78.3 degrees. Perfect.